So Brian Wong is here, and Brian Wong and I, of course, are writing a book. We're writing a book about AI. If you've missed that, then you've missed a bunch of different uh, 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 versions of this channel during the week. So that book is hopefully going to come out in September. We've got eight other authors, or six other authors right now. No, eight. Yeah, it's a total of 10, counting you and me, that will be joining us in this effort. And we're going to try to cover AI from AI from A to Z, and make it very readable, very accessible to everybody that has even the slightest interest in knowing how it's going to impact their life. And anything you want to add to that?
I think there's some other people I'm trying to get involved, venture capitalist, I think possibly who run the AI fund. So there's some other contributors that we could get involved as well. We're still waiting to get confirmation.
All right. And as I keep asking and asking, we need literally 100 or more people to read the book before it's published. So if you'd like to read the book before anybody else gets a chance, or at least among that 100, before it's even published. And then what we're looking for is of course, your feedback and your ideas about the book. Do not just comment below. It's not helpful at all. Look down below, get my email address. It's always down there. Pull up my email address and then just send me an email saying I'd like to do it. We've got about 12 so far, Brian. We need a bunch more. Okay, so we've had a very good week for Tesla, and it was
Yeah.
capped off by a very good day today. We are back
Mhm.
to 3:30 roughly. I didn't look in the after
Mhm.
hours here. What are we doing in the after
I
hours?
think it's not really moving the after hours, just kind of going
A little bit,
sideways.
about to say 3:29:26. Okay, so
Right.
we're call it 3:30. What do
It's
you
on the cusp of a wedge, so it's like it went down from 360, up, down, and it's narrowing. So it's the highs are lower, the lows are higher, so it's wedging out. So it can keep going like that, but obviously Wednesday you
yes.
have the big earnings call. So, it's looking like it's setting up to, go up or go down. And certainly like when it reaches that point, my general feeling, of course, is that, we are if we were to take a step back and look at it, we're clearly rolling out robotaxi. The doubters can say it's not happening or not happening at speed, but it we're in the thing where it's happening. FSD could get approved in Australia. It's talking about expansion, of the Austin service area to the entire city, like both Waymo and that. So, and then within a month or two, we could be in California and Arizona. So those would all pretend to be positive things for the robotaxi story that are happening over just a couple of months. So the fact we could, I guess, in theory, dip down before going up again, but like I would expect positive statements on the Wednesday. So my obviously belief is that we're going to go up, around the Wednesday timeframe. It looks like it's all setting up towards that.
So Elon, we would be looking for, I think, clarity about how Elon sees the rollout. Would you think that we would get more of a detailed look? I mean, right now, I think the most recent things he's said is that we would continue to expand in the Austin market, but he hasn't said things like, for instance, when we might go on highways, or when we might go to the airport, or when the safety rider might be taken out of that seat, when we might start having larger numbers of vehicles on the road, or when we'll expand the population of people that can use the vehicle to be kind of just anybody that wants to use anybody that wants to download the app, they can use it. So these are like five things I can think of off the top of my head that'd be nice
Well,
to.
we have had statements that were describing things generally, right?
Right.
Where the statement is by the end of next year, 2026, that we will have, I think the statement of 25 cities, 1 million
Right.
people,
1 million or more.
where
Yep.
1 million more. Basically, that would be rolling out to um, everyone who has FSD to be part of the robotaxi network by the end of next year, right?
Right.
So there are these broader things, but then the rollout of the new car, lower price car, they kept saying first half of this year, and now we're, you know, 2.5 weeks past that, and that didn't happen, right? Although they did announce some new car versions. The 6-seat Model Y coming to China, a Model 3 Plus with more range. So it seemed like there is a compact Y and other things coming, but we're just, slightly delayed off that. So I think they will the statement they would make would be aligned roughly with the general um, tone and shape of like we're here, we're going there, we're going towards that, right? And it's a question of how much they want to make those statements and then how tightly they can correspond to that.
So
So I think,
yeah,
yeah,
we've seen the robotaxi division give us some, real metrics before,
right,
saying they would roll out the FSD version 13.9 or whatever by X date, or they would
right,
do this by X date, and we and even the date of the Austin, the June 22nd date, we've had these dates and they've been making the dates quite handily. So,
right.
and I don't know that this would be something they would do at the call. In the past, they've
Mm,
done it on X, giving us kind of a series of dates, but we haven't had
yeah,
anything like that in a while. So I think
right,
while I'm sure that I'm sure the number one thing in their mind is don't have an accident.
right,
I'm sure
right,
it's like way up there,
right.
especially after seeing Waymo driving the wrong way,
Mm,
forcing traffic to avoid it and get back
yeah,
into the other lane for
right.
miles. Our argument just kept going and going, and it wasn't making any decisions to make a U-turn. It wasn't making any decisions to just stop in traffic. It was just going the wrong direction. So I'm
Is
sure.
that a new version of that? Because I've seen it do that before,
Oh,
like the year before, 3 months ago. So there have been times where, like, there's a Waymo thing where they have a video of it and it turns like all traffic in one direction is kind of blocked off, and then it turns early, like so it's on the wrong side of
oh, maybe
traffic.
that is
So
maybe it's
that's
both.
over a year old for that one. But there's
Oh,
other ones where it's like in an intersection and it gets stuck and it's moving forward. So the flaws of Waymo,
right.
I've tracked that very closely. Um, there's a site from a bunch of lawyers, which has been quoted by several people about 700 accidents from 2021 um, to 2020 end of 2024,
Mhm.
right? Like 697, right? And then so those incidents are mostly actually not accidents. I think those are um, yeah. I think they were those ones were accidents. So there was but then 89% of those are not Waymo caused.
Right.
They've been involved in it,
Right.
but then they don't count things like the blocking of traffic,
Right.
right? So those have happened too. So the city of Austin has really good metrics on that,
Mhm.
um, where we let's see the number of incidences for Waymo in Austin from that site is I can share that here. So 127 incidents for all these makers. Cruise already stopped. AV Ride has already stopped. Um, Waymo has 70 instances. So I know because I go to this site all the time.
Uh-huh.
That means we had another incident in July because we have 50 incidences in 2025. There were 20 before that, 20 before that, including two nuisance things, three blocking traffic. There was collisions, sorry, collisions, two collisions
Okay.
back before they even started operating, right? So that happened for Waymo. in Austin, and no one talked about that. Whether it was a Waymo fault or was
Right.
not Waymo's fault,
Right.
people, a collision happened, no one talked about it. And then we have 50 incidences. They started in March with real operations. So the incidents that happened before that, like 30 some, were before they started operating in March in terms of a live service.
I see.
And now we have 5 incidences in July. So June, July we had June 11 and then 5 here. A lot of them are these safety concerns and then blocking traffic. They regularly block traffic,
Yeah.
which Farzad showed that
Yeah.
they go in front of this popular restaurant and they block
Right.
traffic.
Right.
So they do this over and over and over again. So they're making mistakes, nearly causing accidents and actually do cause accidents.
Mhm.
And they had another collision,
Mhm.
right? So, and then, but then we don't get a breakdown of which one was caused by them or
Right.
which one is, but then when they're blocking traffic, they're like there was an instance where they caught, where someone had a collision trying to avoid them blocking traffic,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
right? So this is all them having problems doing stuff,
Right.
right? So um, in terms of the number of collisions and other things, they have not had like they're having a problem every like they have supposedly 100 vehicles operating,
Right.
right? So having 3 accidents, they have not, they're over like 250,000 miles per week, right? But that's around over 1,000 vehicles. So only have 10% of their vehicles or less
Right.
in Austin, right? So 25,000 miles max on this thing. So over, say, 10 weeks, and they had fewer than 100 cars before March because they're just doing testing coming up to it, right? So say they've done 250,000 miles and then they had 3 collisions, right? That is not a huge, much safer than human situation,
Mhm.
right? It's in the range,
Mhm.
right? And the fact that now Tesla has, oops, I need to, reload the page. Tesla only has the one incident. I know it hasn't changed. So Tesla, one incident.
What
The
is it?
one incident I believe is a safety concern, right? Where it
When
that
it,
was I
right.
think Dave Lee incident where it avoided having a UPS truck back into it, right?
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
So of the 10 instances now, we've been operating for nearly a month, right? So June 22 to July 18,
Right.
nearly a month, 11 vehicles. We've expanded the area, maybe gone to more vehicles, right? And we have twice as many or 3 times or 5 times as many doing testing,
Mhm.
right? So like down 20 miles, 20 minutes to the south, 20 miles to, there's all these other test
Right.
vehicles running
Right.
around with stuff on top, right? Those test vehicles have not had problems, right? But then they have a safety driver probably in the passenger seat, because why wouldn't you do that, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But they can say, okay, well, no incidents with your safety driver testing. Waymo had 2 collisions with safety drivers.
Right. Right. Right.
So what are we talking about here? They had 20 instances. They were colliding and doing stuff. So the fact that Tesla's running clean is not just that we have now the number of incidences, right? Like there was 70 for Waymo versus 1 for Tesla. When you scale that to vehicle days, Tesla's now equal to them,
Mhm.
right? So people say, oh, well, not instances. And they say they're almost incidences, right? Well, same methodology to do this reporting, right? So the so the we're this is clearly I think an apples to apples comparison,
Okay.
right? Where
Yep.
we know that everything's being reported, not completely, but the same cutoff point. Like the almost incident or like almost turning to the wrong lane, that's being ignored for Waymo as well, right? So actually causing traffic problems, actually causing a nuisance, actually causing a safety incident, actually causing a collision,
Right.
right? So no collisions here. And the number of vehicle days, especially if you include the other driving that
Mhm.
Tesla's doing, is
Mhm.
looking very good for safety,
Right.
right? And then the broader view of the annual reports that we get from California and Phoenix, that was at 700. Now adding to these, we're probably at 800, 900 incidents of the various forms for Waymo. So Waymo's pushing ahead and having the instances, and their claim about how safe they are relative to human drivers, because they say what we're X times safer than that, is probably some ways true, but then
Mhm.
also, there is stuff happening, right?
So this goes to my theory that Tesla's goal shouldn't be safer than humans. It should be safer than Waymo.
Right, right.
So if we can show stats that are
Yeah,
basically the equivalent of Waymo, then the door should be open pretty much everywhere that it's
right,
open for Waymo right now. It should be easy to go
right.
to these
So,
various.
so the fact that we haven't had anything happen since, the one day incident, which was
Right,
basically another vehicle doing something, is looking very solid for us.
right.
Although there was a a complete
Disengage.
disengagement and actually someone getting into the car because when they expanded the area, there was one of the SpaceX YouTubers, um, um, uh, a woman who also she does I think some co-hosting with Joe Tegmar sometimes,
Mhm.
right? So she was also there, had a ride with Joe Tegmar, and then she had some independent rides, applied, got into that, and after they expanded the zone, the system got confused as to what was in or outside the zone, and then he had to get some driver in because of was refusing to do stuff,
Mhm.
right? So it's not like there are imperfections happening, but it's not a safety related
Right,
things that are
right.
happening. So in terms of Tesla going confident enough to say safety is looking good, all indications from the reporting, from the videos, from us, indicating that things are going pretty smoothly. So I think we're heading towards a substantial expansion to the full city, the safety drivers that they talked about. So, you know, they have, of course, even better data than we do. I'm just looking at what's the iceberg on top,
Mhm, mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm.
But based on that, there's no indications of problems that we're looking clearly safer than Waymo. Um, and the prudent aspect of having safety monitors is, you know, showing to be a better result. So I think that transition phase out looking like, August sometime, probably end of August. Because again, being prudent, during the early phases, no need to rush, right?
So, all right, I want to bring up my current hobby horse. I mean, again, we're writing this book on AI, and if people are curious, the reason we're right, what no, part of the reason that Brian and I decided to write this book on AI is that Tesla is switching to an AI company. We're in that transition. Larry and I just talked about that. If you want to go back and look, I'll put the card up later in the show. But Larry and I talked, and he's like, "Yeah, what he'd like to hear from Elon on Wednesday is how is this transition going to look? When do we see the company is truly more of an AI company than it is a hardware company?" And of course, that's going to depend on profits and revenue and things in terms of the mind of Wall Street. But what about in the mind of Elon? And so what I also asked Larry, so you can go back and check out what Larry's response was, but I want to ask you, Brian. Let's. I use the example of the solar panels, but I want to use the example of robotaxi. We now have AI. Now Google has AI, so our number one competitor, Waymo, is a Google-related company, and Tesla is not the one with Grok, but they have access to Grok, obviously, and then they have their own stack, their own, I'm always forgetting the name of it. The one in
Dojo
Texas,
chips, the Cortex,
the
the data
Cortex,
center.
yeah, the Cortex. I know it begins with a C, just can remember
Yeah.
what it was. So, so Cortex. So they've got they could be putting demands on that. But the real key here, the real question I'm asking over and over again is Tesla, because it has access to Grok and Cortex, and Elon is the one who's basically running both of those pieces of equipment. It's not like the head of Waymo has anything close to Elon's brain power. You combine Elon with that extension, that superhuman extension of his capabilities, wouldn't he be able to go into and start to use Grok Heavy to start figuring out some of these issues faster?
Mhm.
Putting in all kinds of parameters, not only of maybe what his vehicles are doing, but also what other vehicles are doing, putting in the kind of mistakes that are being made, because we got lots of them now, and he's got lots and lots and lots of vehicles making these mistakes that are in his own fleet, but also the ones from the general fleet. And we're down to just a few different kinds of things that typically are happening. And that's true for Waymo also. So it would seem like you can put that in and you can start to use simulations. You can start to use, real data combined with simulations. I mean, it would seem like you could start to really take care of these last few issues rapidly, given the compute that we have now.
I think it is, to your point, accelerating because of, more compute from Cortex and that kind of thing. But I don't underestimate the capabilities and processes that Tesla already has in place, that they've been using for their 6 billion miles to get to where we are today, right? So those are very advanced processes that are getting them to a safer than human driving experience, and they're removing the brittleness and doing all those kinds of things. Um, so yes, it is, but we wouldn't know the build a parse um, where it is because they'd have to open up all kinds of data to us that they're not going to do,
Yeah.
right? Um, Having worked on in IT groups and that kind of thing, I could imagine the well, even just using the tools right now, you're getting data is helping, you're able to survey stuff, you're getting a little productivity. I'm thinking that because they're already very, smart people, already have really good processes, that the level of acceleration of those really skilled and qualified and competent people is probably only around the order of 10-20% currently. Because that's when I talk to elite programmers at, say, Google,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
They'll say, it only helped become 20%. It helps some person who's not programming 100%. I could
Yeah.
not program that at all, and
Yeah.
now I can,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But for people who already can do stuff, then it's probably only on the order of 20%,
All
right?
right, then let me use the same example I used with him. So we have this issue of whether Tesla's going to get into the solar panel business or not. So the
Yeah.
solar panel has metallurgy, it has glass technology, it has all kinds
Mhm.
of different raw materials that need to be sourced. There are
Mhm.
various different ways to make solar panels using different kinds of raw materials. There's different kinds of glass manufacturing capabilities. I understand there's something called flow technology that some companies are now using for solar panels. There's the
Mhm.
business of how they are mounted at the scene, how they are not mounted at the scene, as the case may be, like redwood materials, just laying them flat on the ground. You've got all these different things, all these different inputs, and Tesla
Yeah.
has their own tech that
Yeah.
they've been developing for 15 years now between the previous company's Solar City,
Soul City. Yeah.
and then when they take it over, and now when they've been doing it to create it on the roofs with the specialized tiles. So they got a tremendous amount of tech. But and I don't know, well, I've done it. I've done it as a plastics manufacturer. So if I wanted to make a change, like to the raw material that I was using, I would be calling in salespeople from different vendors. I'd be asking my engineers. I'd be looking at other people's products and seeing if I could tell what they might be using, and maybe having spectrometers or melts or some kind of methods for figuring out what
Mhm.
their plastics that they're using. It would seem like this would all just accelerate dramatically. The Tesla could say, what is all the science that exists?
Mhm.
And they could send the agents out, and they could pull all the science on all solar daily as it's
So here's how I think Elon's thinking about it.
okay.
There's some key aspects to what end result they want to get to. Um, Two major end results drive the decision about what to do, right? One is what would be the solar technology and solar factories that would let me make terawatts on Mars, right? So that actually is a little consideration about that. Like, oh, I'm building boring company tunnels and blah blah blah. I'm going to make them in Vegas. I like to have. And result is I need to go underground for habitation on Mars in order to avoid radiation problems there,
Uh-huh.
right? And also there's other reasons, for a Mars colony, other things why you would want to have tunneling there,
Right, right.
right? Um, and then for solar, there's just making a slightly better version, 10, 20 gigawatts of solar panels that are like what China is currently doing, right? Just getting to a point of competing is not, I think, what Elon wants. Just because, for supply chain, global supply chain, tariffs, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
That matters, but it is not going to, I think, drive what this will look like. So then the other factor is he needs a lot of solar with batteries, Megapack 3 that have the grid in it,
Mhm.
that can scale up for AI data centers.
Mhm.
So the AI data center use case of I need many gigawatts of power, because a gigawatt, 2 gigawatts, he's doing that by moving a factory over from Europe or someplace that's not being used, probably built by China, but then some import-export thing you couldn't get the direct from China, and they're getting it, one that's already pre-built and then brought over here, right? So that's at the 2 gigawatt solution level, right? And maybe you could double that up to 5 gigawatts. So something that lets him make 10 gigawatts of power or 100 gigawatts of power within 5 years, that matters to him. Or getting to a terawatt by 2035,
Right.
right? So those levels of power for an energy solution, mixing solar and batteries, is something that matters. And then getting, like I said, terawatts to Mars. What would be shaping I could put terawatts on Mars? It'd be so light, I can move a lot of it via starships.
Right.
I can move, 200,000 tons via starship. I can move, you know, some, weight to whatever ratio. So I wouldn't want a bunch of metal framing or whatever like that to do stuff. So then I'm looking at, how fast can I just lay it out, roll by roll or something like that,
Mhm.
on Mars. Or also make the production in terms of materials. What is some easy material I can get to scale on Mars
Right.
so I can then produce my own panels or my own sheets of solar roll to roll, like a newspaper printing, newspaper, like the big rolls, roll to roll, of making vast amounts of solar,
Mhm.
where it's just like, carpet, or newspaper, just like, spewing it out kind of thing. So the material question is fewer materials, so I only need to mine 3 or 4 materials on Mars, and I know I got a lot of it, right? And then something that can let me make hundreds of gigawatts in one spot quickly for an AI data center, right? So those two factors of how well can I get to a lot of power on Mars and on Earth, right? Those are what would factor in, I believe, into a solution. Because if he's starting something up now, he wants to get it to scale in 3, 4 years. Then he'll be flying starships to Mars. Then he'll be needing the next data center after 2026. So those are actually relatively immediate concerns that he would have to scale up his solar solution to achieve, right?
Okay. So then again, I always try to pull it back to this idea that AI is going to be breaking through. Okay.
Mhm.
Whether we're talking about genomic, uh, analysis, whether we're talking about running thousands of experiments simultaneously in simulation, whether we're talking about being able to pull all the data in. This is where I'm really trying to figure out where I mean, I think I'm right, but I'm asking you because you know way more than I do about it, not about everything. I probably know more about something than you do. I just don't know what it is. Oh yeah, plastic water bottles. Anyway,
And bicycles.
so 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 but to me the idea is that because Elon is connected, my partner was different than me. His brain, even though he's older than me, he was like a teenager with computers. His brain was connected to the computer. He could get more out of the computer than anybody I knew when they were first coming out. He had an Apple IIc, 6 months before I did. It took him 6 months to convince me to get one. I mean, but he was already doing things on that were magical. There are people like that. Elon would be one of those kind of people. Now, most computer scientists would also have that kind of capability. But I'm talking about Elon on a completely different level with the greatest tool ever made, the greatest data collector, analyzer, experimenter, etc., at his command. It would seem like this would be a superpower for the companies that is on a completely different planet already before he gets to Mars.
I think that it's like Magnus Carlsen using chess computers, right? He's not using it day to day for the games, right? And he, there were certain things where um, it gave him certain insights around how to play the king and do some stuff, right? Where it suddenly revealed a flaw, systemic flaw in the thinking of the masters, right? Like the master chess players, the grandmasters, right? They all were not doing that correctly. And so then they learned a lesson from that and then they applied that to it.
Right.
But it's not like, you know, to have the AIs reveal that we have been thinking about something wrong with data and that kind of stuff, that's very useful. But Elon's already an expert at running companies, making choices and that kind of thing. So what I think he's doing is that he's identifies massive use cases of like, not like ask it a question, give me back a slightly better answer after, you know, 2 minutes, something that could take in a week. Elon can assign problems to 100 brilliant people
Right.
and get back that enhancement, right? So, and the fact that they can then use that and then get the 20% gain that I talked about, that's useful to him. So things are going a bit faster. But he could already offload questions and get bounce back from and interact with very smart people. The fact that we're now adding an AI helps that, but is not transformational, right? So what is transformational is something that could not be done without AI, right? And that he's already kind of announced it. He's saying we're going to make, insanely good breakthrough video games on that, right? And we're going to have it generate, video and those kind of things.
Right.
So things that once it has to be a complete end-to-end perfected solution at scale, like making rapidly okay video games that don't sell is irrelevant. I need to be able to make world-class video games
Right.
that can expand and that would have taken, creating a company of, 1,000 people to compete with the top game companies today. Just like making a new Twitter, involved hundreds of people, recoding and doing that kind of stuff, right? So he has to say, what is the end thing? It's not like a small thing. It's a big thing. I'm going to make an entirely new video games. I'm going to get into and dominate a $100 billion industry, right? For AI, it's also, I need to solve coding, right? So coding of video games, but also coding of the software for the car, for the robotaxi, stuff like that. But it's not like a specific problem that is, like robotaxi, that involved years of work, a lot of data, and a non-trivial solution. So it's, that if I can master that, it will, it's not like I think about making a product, search engine that will compete against OpenAI's ChatGPT and Google search and all this kind of stuff. He doesn't want a bunch of just competitive things. He wants to, how can I leapfrog to something 10x, 100x better that is useful for me as a capability that I know I also need this piece, like robotaxi, like a automated researcher on materials, like an automated coder, right? It has to be a big, complete use case, really challenging. So then these short-term things of like getting better at what can be done in the few minutes is he still wants that, but it's not something they can say. It's like he has to say, I've identified that mountain as useful to climb, right? I
Mhm.
want to climb that mountain. The fact that I can climb up hills up and down faster, whatever, I don't care about hills. I care about very useful mountains of effort, right? So I didn't have to identify um, a huge valuable target, just like Mars,
Right, right,
Mars
right.
City,
Oh,
a huge valuable target. Fully reusable Starship, a huge valuable target,
right.
right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I understand you. I see I see where you're coming from. I do know that he said the other day, now maybe he was just experimenting and playing around with Grok 4 to see what its capabilities were, but he said, I asked it material science questions. In the material science questions, the answers I got are not in textbooks. I was
Mhm.
surprised by that, or apparently surprised enough to make a comment about it. And since this is an area that he and I have a little bit in common, because material science is something that I was playing with all the time in plastics, you're looking at maybe a change. They just did this patent on how to put the paint into large aluminum parts on cars without going through a paint room. They got that patent. Okay, so in order to do that, my guess is they had to take a look at multiple different kinds of aluminums. Different. I know that part of the patent was that the aluminum won't burn up to get too hot in the die. And because there was some aluminums that would apparently potentially catch fire in that situation. So anyway, there's all these parameters. And so you can add
Mhm.
a little bit of this, a little bit of that to the aluminum in order to get someplace you want to go. And it would just seem to me that the kind of the way that I think the way that Elon thinks, based on what we've looked at him all these years, is in the middle of the night, he wakes up, he's awake and he's thinking and he's doing something else. And he goes, there's really got to be a much better way to make a solar panel.
Right.
He's not going to go and call his 100 guys in and
Right.
say, okay, I want to make a much better solar panel. He's going to go, okay, wait, what if, and
Yeah.
then he's going to hit Grok himself and he's going to say, okay, what if we used, you know,
Mm.
magnesium instead of uh, abnosium? Uh,
Mm.
that's a
Right.
joke.
Right.
That was the best I could do in
Yeah.
short notes. Anyway, and and then it comes back and says, well, no, but, and then he can go, well, what
Mhm.
about? And then it
Yeah.
could say, what about? And it can say, here's 15. And Elon can go,
Mm.
yeah, well, 13 of those are absolutely no, but here's two. I
Right.
mean, you didn't have that capability last week. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about, where it
Mhm.
seems like the combination of Elon with that machine
Mhm.
will be what you said.
Mhm.
It will be something that he could go out and work on something massive
Yeah.
in terms of the future, but also something when he's like, man, I just thought, what about this?
Yeah.
And
So it is something
might get
where they will,
halfway, and he might
right.
get halfway into it, and
Yeah.
then say to his team of 100 guys, "Hey, figure out the rest or something." I don't know.
Right. So basically they have to have a system that can explore the search space of where are all the ways where I could get a 10x out of overall solar power production within these constraints, like four in a data center, four Mars, when I'm taking over there. They want to get orders of magnitude, two orders of magnitude of gains from that, right? So they're ask, exploring with that. His teams are exploring with that, and they're using AI enhancement to search more, search faster, and find better solutions to that, right? And then they're doing the whole simulation thing, and then also simulating the factories. Digital twin of the factory, and then digital twin of the different kinds of ways they can organize the factory. Again, looking for a 2x, 4x, 10x improvement in whatever they're doing. Um, Figuring out how to solve all their 4680 battery
Yeah.
problems on the dry cathode thing,
Yeah.
and then figuring out how to solve whatever production issues, and then redo things so where they can up production by 10x, 100x, lower costs by half or something like that. So they're looking for these big wins in maybe areas. How do I completely redo the the mega packs so that we don't have to have grid or something like that. So there are these big questions and going down that path, and then being able to um, go from first principles into something completely different, and to explore that. Much like in people who watch the Marvel movie Infinity War, where Doctor Strange looked through the million different futures to find the one where they win,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So right now we can explore like 10 or 100, but
Yeah.
now it's like, hey, how can we explore a million different ways to do this thing
Right.
to get not just a 5% gain? I want a big 10x win out of this thing, right? Or 100x win, right?
This is a real techie question, and probably
Mhm.
99% of the people listening don't care, and maybe I don't either. But can they take their proprietary knowledge, let's say on solar panels? 'Cause I'm sure they have, mountains of scientific analysis that they've done that they have not put in any papers. That's
Mhm.
their proprietary set of information. Can they create a separate little parceled off version of Grok Heavy and add their proprietary knowledge to that?
They have all kinds of internal models only. Like Meta has internal models only,
Okay,
and all the ones who make their public models have internal models.
I
Like
got it.
before they released Grok 4 was their internal model,
Right,
right? So, and then, right now they're training up a new one. So that one is internal to them, and they can have versions of it, version of Grok 4,
right,
running by themselves.
right,
So yes, they'll have multiple internal versions customized for their own thing, and they may, they're making one for coding, they're making one for multimodal. So I'm sure that they're, you know, 10 different kinds. Like someone who runs their own local model where it's like, I'm going to use one of the open source models, and I'm going to have the 8 GB one, or I'm going to have the 80 GB one. They can have one that has a terabyte, it can run on one rack. So they
right.
can have um, 100 different models all running, all tuned to a specific purpose. That, here's the one designed specifically for material science exploration and stuff like that. And they can just decide how much of their million chips that they'll devote to it. Okay, 1,000 chips for this guy. Yeah, a major model, or other ones that just will have different ones running on, a smaller subset of stuff. Um, so, so that's the advantage also of the major foundation model companies, the ones who are making, like OpenAI,
Yeah,
xAI, um, Google, and that they have loads of insanely good, not just only the public one they can run on a laptop. They can have from huge running on a cloud server to 10 smaller ones running on small clouds, or 100 or 1,000.
yeah.
Yeah,
So the hyperscalers who have these massive data centers at this point have this is what I'm really trying to get to. They really do have a tremendous advantage over anybody else in terms
right,
of producing their own products, services, etc., using these tools that aren't even on the market yet,
right.
or that they can enhance internally that other people don't even have the tools to enhance.
And Tesla hasn't even unlocked 10 1 million GPU data centers they'll do over the next 2 years.
Yeah,
That will be when they do the AI5 chip and do the
yeah,
distributed compute, right?
right,
So they want the AI5 chip, say it's starting at the end of this year, and then they'll make say all through 2026, they do only AI 5 cars. So
Right.
then they have some cheaper models, some stuff. They can do 3 million next year. And then they do the year after that, 5 million. And the year after that, 10 million, something like that. So then they could have 20 million chips of the AI 5, 10 times better. And those would all be running inference. So people think, oh, they could be giving it questions from other people. Who cares about the other people's questions? Then they would say, I want to come up with a new battery,
Yeah.
and I'm going to ask, I'm going to pay people to use this thing, right? To do this stuff for me. I'm going to calculate out, new battery, new battery chemistries, new solar panels. Those are the questions that they'll be asking and putting out there. It's not going to be have a replacement for Google search and then give me the best recipe for a cheesecake, right? They say we want to get big
Why
answers.
wouldn't they want that? It seems like that would be more important than anything we've just talked about.
Yeah, but it's like simulating, Tesla bots, making those 10 times better. Those are the big questions they want to have, and that they're going to unlock, with the AI 5 chip, that they'll get all these compute chips going, right? You know, Probably, nearing 10 million of those by end of 2027 or beginning of 2028, right? And that 10 million chips is 10 times the size of their, um, Memphis data center that'll be completing in 2020, beginning 2026,
Right.
or 100,000 chips or 200,000 chips at Cortex, right?
Yeah.
So that's an advantage they have in terms of like getting a lot of compute and the kind of questions and the scale of things that matters. Like you want really big questions that have like, oh, I can have my batteries 10 times better,
Right.
right? Production rate 10 times better,
Right.
range twice as good, all that kind of stuff, right? So it's basically, I have this super intelligent genie, right?
Yeah.
The what Elon can do is direct it towards questions, if I had the answer to this, I could have 10 times better batteries, and
Right.
then I could have my factory production 5 times better, right? So those are the kind of like totally transformational wishes
Yeah.
that would be worth but of course there's also a smaller one. I get a double, I get a 50%.
Sure.
Still a huge thing, but they're looking, at going directionally down that thing. They're exploring how could I totally turn things around and totally change things.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's the key. To me, that's what I'm kind of talking about is, you know, in my businesses over the years, I've always wanted some small advantage. Now, sometimes that would just be a price advantage or it might be a delivery advantage, but a lot of times it was, being able to make something that the other guy couldn't make at all, couldn't do at all, some kind of an advantage. And of course, that's where your, brainstorming sessions come in. But
Right.
the brainstorming capabilities of Colossus are, I don't know, bigger than my
Right.
personal, I think.
So what I described there is basically, like in the book that if you have this acceleration of capability,
Right.
you have to start thinking about leapfrog. And if you look at what Elon's been doing, going from Falcon 9 partial reusability, but 10x lower cost, 10% the cost,
Right.
going to Starship fully reusable, another 10 times lower cost, and 100 times the capacity going to space, right? So we have 90% of all space payloads going to 99.9%. Going for these utter domination things
Yeah.
of like making a robotaxi that will reduce the cost of transportation by 5 times,
Right.
right? So
Or
it's
four. Yeah.
he's going for these huge wins. Oh, it's taking so long. He didn't just double the number of cars kind of thing. It's like he's trying to do that, but the eyes on the big prize of these huge leaps. And going for these innovative leapfrogging capabilities is the kind of like really big question transformation that it can have. And when we all get into this age of super intelligence, that's the thing I think we need to look at. It's not like how can I make my job retirement 10, 20% better. It's like how can I spend more time to fully realize something that will make things 10 times better, 100 times better. That's the kind of like difference in mindset that can be unlocked for everyone, right? Of like, and to the person who's living in the future is Elon, and where he's already going for these leapfrog and have been going for leapfrog for the last 10, 15 years, right? 20 years. Then that's the kind of leapfrogging that we need to look at. It's not just, can I get a better answer to a question right now?
Hmm.
It's how can my planning, my approach to things get major unlocks?
Right, right, right. Okay. All right. So your best guess, Tesla gets above 330 between now and Wednesday, or goes sideways between now and Wednesday, and then takes off after Wednesday, or what are you thinking?
Um, I think it's 3 to 1 that it's up. That it's going to 340, 350. If it breaks through 350, that's a major level, but kind of like edging up to that uh, makes more sense. Actually, I would say 2 to 1 that it edges up.
Okay,
Um, 1 out of 4 that he just goes flat, stays here at this cusp level, down and up towards it, and then 1 out of 4 it goes down. In terms of like going down, the overall market, like some
sure.
tariff thing, some other stuff could throw a monkey in the wrench or something like that. But then on the day, I would say more likely that it goes upwards. That a big thing would be a really positive set of news about robotaxi, faster rollout, some statement positive around that, some statement positive around Tesla bot. There's various things that can come out that would be highly positive. More news about other models. They already
Right,
got
right.
2 smaller models. They could um, tip their hand to that. Although there's the whole Osborne effective for an actual lower price model, but that more leaks could happen that could show that the case. So um, I think that we then break to the upside is my opinion that should happen on the Wednesday. So a little bit, the fact that we've been trending up, that can continue. If it went to 360 or something like that before the Wednesday night when we have the call,
Mhm.
then it could be that people have institutions that have already traded on the news of
Mhm.
something,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then they could sell off afterwards. But through the end of the year, I think with all this robotaxi expansion, other things that we should, we already talked about going back to all-time highs and other stuff like that. So I'm expecting over the next 2 months the lower price model to come out, serious expansion of robotaxi. So then, getting towards all-time highs by the end of Q3 would certainly be my expectation. And then, we talked about going to 1,000. So that would be, a really good expansion of the rollout to thousands and thousands of vehicles, and getting serious revenue to make that very clear that we're on to the Kathy Wood path. Uh,
And probably to get to that 1,000, I still believe you also need some kind of a reveal on Optimus, showing that Optimus can do lots of useful tasks in the
right.
factory. That would be probably in order to get to 1,000. I think. I think.
Well, the other thing is that we have the other thing in the mix is we have different versions of Grok 4 that
Right.
can come out,
Right.
right? So we'll come out with the Grok 4 coding in the next couple of months, come out with a Grok 4 multimodal, right? That could come out. I'm expecting a Grok 4 Mini that would be more efficient, faster,
Hmm.
right? So there's several things that can happen on the AI side. And then leading up to, they could, do 2 to 3 times the compute training, this year, getting it to 250,000, depending on power levels, that could come out with would it be a Grok 4.5 or would it be a full Grok 5? And then leading up to the million with million chips of B200s, which would be the equivalent of 5 million H100s, right? Versus the current system using 400,000, right?
Right.
So we have another 12x of compute gain to happen there. And that would also be a substantially different model. In terms of the stuff you talked about, simulations, artificial scientists, you know, get pushing that level of capability
Right.
is something that is in play. So it's the robotaxis getting to 1 million, 2 million robotaxis over the next 12 months. The Grok 4, 5, 6 or something like that getting to the 1 million chips and being the equivalent of 5 million H100s, and then driving the um, possible like new scientific breakthroughs of new physics, new science. Like those are the really big wins. Like how well it does on
A test.
some commercial basis or helping, X,
Right.
XAI and X to get more people to sign up is nice, and we want it to happen, but it's secondary to actual scientific breakthroughs,
Right.
right? Because if the actual scientific breakthrough of new physics, new materials, new stuff like that, the wins and leverages off that could be huge because it would be like asking for it in a way that we could deliver it from the existing factories without much modification,
Right.
right? Those would be, huge wins. Whereas, suddenly the, 1,000-mile range car could be produced by tweaking the chemistries and whatever and getting to a rare version of LFP or something like that. It'd be, um, those would be monster wins if we could actually start unlocking those kind of capabilities. So the upside um, becomes really nutty if
Yes.
if
Yes. Yes.
the full AI stuff is happening. We got a Dojo 2 chip, AI 5 chip at scale, Grok 4, 5, 6 happening, and then other chips that would be ASIC or FPGA where you're programming on the hardware that could give another 10x improvement or 100x improvement in the whole AI data center. There's huge wins that can happen where things are really accelerating. So the AI, the company becoming it fully AI, right,
Right.
is something that will happen over 2026, right?
Yes. Yes. All right. Okay. I think we're gonna leave it there. As I mentioned, I'm gonna put up the Larry Goldberg video that I just did with him a couple of hours ago. Be able to go back and look at that. There's the card. Tomorrow will be fairly normal programming. Well, actually, I'm not sure of that. Got CERN Basher for sure. The rest of it's still uncertain for tomorrow. So I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow, but it'll be great. I can tell you it'll be great. And then if you want to sign up, remember, you go down and get my email and say, yes, I'd like to read the book and give you guys some feedback on the book. Just go check that out in the description below. And last thoughts, Brian?
Nope.
You're done.
Looking for a
Okay.
great weekend and big next week. Yeah.
All right. I'm done too. Looking forward to it. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.